So my vision to take a group to Glastonbury began actually back in 2014 when I completed my first speaking tour in the US. And at the end of that, the beautiful sister that hosted me, she gifted me a pair of earrings of the mandorla from the Chalice Well that she'd actually bought for herself in Glastonbury, and she felt moved to give them to me. And I was really touched by this gift, but I didn't put it together at the time that, I'd followed my guidance to do a ceremony for the shift in 2012 at Uluru in the central desert of Australia. And then in 2014, again, I followed my guidance and went and did ceremony at the four vortices around Sedona. And then this was the universe saying, this is your next assignment, so to speak. So it wasn't until the full moon in Virgo, and Virgo is the sign of the priestess, that inspiration hit. And it came in the form of an email from a woman that I had studied Kabbalah with, and she runs sacred site tours. And that put the idea in my head. I thought, gosh, I've always wanted to go to Glastonbury and I haven't been this lifetime, knowing that I'd certainly lived there in other lifetimes. And so I thought, what the heck, I'll look into it. And I thought I'd try and find a tour that really incorporated a lot of the ancient women's traditions and women's mysteries. And I had a look online and I found one. But when she found out that I was a teacher, she said, I'd prefer that you don't come with this group, because she'd had a bad experience with another teacher. And she said, but I'll organise a tour for you if you want to take your own group. So I followed that thread, and she ended up needing to do other things, but she referred me on to somebody local in Glastonbury. And that chap, he was, more the usual sightseeing places of interest, churches and things like that. And so he wasn't exactly the right fit for the vision that I'd started to get. And the vision was the symbol of the mandorla. Now, the mandorla is what we see at the Chalice Well. It's the intercepting circles that create that doorway, that Vesica Pisces, which is literally the gateway to the heart, the gateway to the upper chakras or energy centers. And it's been said that Glastonbury is both the heart chakra and the third eye. Now, my understanding is that this is where the alchemical libation was poured by the Magdalene when she came across with Joseph of Arimathea, and it's time to activate those Grail codes again. So that's the mission, if you will, that I am following. And so we are creating alchemical elixirs for that purpose, to literally anchor sacred union within the unity grid. Now, the unity grid is simply the energy or the aura of the globe, of the world soul. So it became clearer and clearer that what was being asked of me was to gather a gathering of 12 men and 12 women, so kind of like, the disciples of old, and that we would gather with this intention in our hearts, and we would fill our chalice in our hearts so they were overflowing with all the languages of love. And then with the overflow, we would pour that bhakti love, the devotional love we have for Mother Earth and Father Sky, into the grid, to open up an energetic union, an alchemical sacred marriage, to balance the energies of sacred feminine and masculine on the planet. So I did find a guide in the form of Tor, who is our tour guide, and he seemed like a good fit. He understood where I was coming from. And then I started to get awoken at 4 a.m. for 3 mornings in a row. And I should say that the vision that I received of the mandorla, that came after we had 2 M6 solar flares and 1 M9. So this is a time when the electromagnetic field on the Earth was very highly charged, when we just received sort of a massive blast of light energies, and we were busy integrating those. So so I started getting awoken every single morning at 4 a.m. and between 4 and 6 is soul time. It's often when our higher self will, ask for us to receive a download, to have a meeting, if you will, between the lower self and the higher self, or the rational brain and the superconscious. So, the word that kept being repeated and repeated in my consciousness as I was floating between the worlds of sleeping and waking was conjunction. So this word, conjunction, I'm like, what does that mean? And it occurred to me to Google, when in doubt, what the conjunctions were happening in 2016 astrologically. What were the celestial conjunctions? Because I figured I was being told there was some sort of major astrological event happening, and I should align the mandala ceremony at Glastonbury with that conjunction. Now, as synchronicity would have it, just that week I had watched 2 films. One was Thor, I can't remember if it was the first or the second one, and one was Hercules, the kids' animated version, the musical. And both of those films, as their climactic point, had an astrological conjunction. So there was a certain thing that the hero in the quest was needing to have completed and done at this time of this astrological convergence, in order to shift, be a game changer, to shift the energies. So I looked it up, and sure enough, it was just a few days outside of the dates that I'd already tentatively booked with Tor. Between June 4 and June 6 was this astrological conjunction. What it is, it's if you follow Vedic astrology, which is the ancient Indian form of astrology, which works with what's happening if you were to look up, as astronomers do, it is then called the fixed cross. Now, the fixed cross, this isn't just any fixed cross. Within the 6 months lead up to this fixed cross, each one of the planets, the fixed sign planets, would be, or rather the planets would be in one of the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. So Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. And each one of them would have been conjunct with their royal star, their major star. So it was considered the royal fixed cross. And I had a look in some forums, and this was seen as a very auspicious event because it had been prophesied in Scripture, in the Bible, in Revelations. We have Ezekiel's dream. And Ezekiel was the one who saw the 4 symbols of the fixed cross, those being the man, the bull, the lion. Now I've blanked on the other one. Anyway, Google it. And then the rainbow. And it was considered the herald of the return of the divine, of the anchoring of heaven on earth. And then I looked a bit further and I saw that the fixed cross, the same 4 symbols that represent the 4 fixed signs, featured in 2 of the major arcana cards in the tarot. Now, I used to read tarot for, 16 years. And you'll see in, particularly in the Rider-Waite deck, which is the most commonly used deck for teaching, in the Wheel of Fortune card and in the final card, the World, we see these 4 fixed signs. And in the final card, it's also, there's the Grail symbolism is there as well. So it's a time of reconnecting with the ancient mystery of the Grail. That holds an absolute key to restoring the sacred balance on earth between spirit and matter, feminine, masculine. which is the cross. So, yeah, so I felt very blessed to be called to be at these sacred sites for this period of time. And not only that, both the sun and Venus. Okay, now Venus, for those of you that know the name of my mystery school, it's Star of Ishtar. Ishtar was the Babylonian name for Venus. And Venus is the planetary sphere of the sacred feminine. And both the Sun and Venus are going to be in the Pleiades at the time of this astrological event in 2016. Now, the significance of the Pleiades are also known as the Seven Sisters. They're a star system. And they're also known as the Rings of Alcyone. And that is because Alcyone is their brightest star at the center of the Pleiades. And it's said that in 2012, when we shifted officially from the Piscean age, a time of duality, into the Aquarian age, a 2,000-year period where we would explore oneness and, you know, brotherly, sisterly love. The birds agree, that Earth was the seventh and the final planet to, at that time, join and become the final planet circling in the rings of Alcyone around this great central sun, as it's known. So this feels like a very auspicious time to gather. And what was shown to me was that the people who would be called together had agreed to this even before they incarnated this lifetime. They would be leaders in their own field. They would be dedicated game changers, those who had really connected with the collective pain on the planet at this time, not just of the humans, but of the animals, the plant realms, the stone people, and those who we've lost contact with but are still very much a part of the kingdoms, and that is those of Middle-earth. And these were the folk that were calling me in my sleep state. It was the Fae who literally live under the Glastonbury Tor. There's a beautiful song about the hills being hollow. What's his name? Dan the Bard sings about this. And so, yeah, my birth name is Tanya, and it means it's a derivative of Titania, Queen of the Fairies. So, you know, I've journeyed a lot with the Fae, with those beings who, you know, are two-dimensional beings, so they don't vibrate at the same frequency of those of us in 3D, those of us that are in physical form. Their form is thin as steam vapors, you know, and we'll often experience them as a shadow of energy, and then we'll sense them, we'll feel them, and then we'll turn to look at them and we can't see them through our retina, which is used to only seeing hard physical form. So it was these beings, if you will, that invited me, and in meditation have shown me what it is that needs to be done energetically at these specific vortices around the third eye center of the globe to open our heart to living in sacred union. So this is just a shout out to those of you that know in your hearts you're meant to be there. Please contact me. Where there's a will, there's a way. If you feel deeply called to be a part of these ceremonies, it would be my honor to share this moment in history with you. So thank you for watching, and yeah, don't hesitate to get in contact. Blessings.